Yes, hello traders. This is Ghost Trader, aka Tank from the Matrix, aka Tank Trades, sharing with you another daily breakdown for Friday, August the 26th. So it was a pretty interesting day in the markets today. It's about lunchtime now. I'm on the West Coast here. It's almost about 9 a.m. Pacific time, so about noon Eastern. But as you can see, the S&P 500, the SPY was actually making some pretty drastic sell-off moves. Right here around 7 a.m. Pacific time or 10 a.m. Eastern time, we did have the Jackson Hole Federal Reserve speech from Jerome Powell over at Jackson Hole, Wyoming. So that would be the catalyst causing this action here, and also obviously this little that caused the initial sell-off, little bounce right away, a little fake out move, as to be expected. And then I believe that's actually what caused the rest of the additional bleeding throughout the rest of the morning, which actually brought some really good action to the short side on pretty much almost all of the beta names, and I was able to capture a couple of them through some macro pivot levels. So yeah, that's kind of what happened here. As you can see, to start off around 419 area. If you want to look from last night, what had happened overnight was it started to gap down a bit, but then right before the open, it had get down almost to 417. But then right before the open, it had a little burst. I think it might have released some economic data or something like that, but it had a little gap up before the open. But then, as you can see, it proceeded to sell off the rest of the day, as I mentioned, mostly I believe caused by the Jackson Hole Fed speech. So to look at some individual names, some of the names that I was watching today was the trades that I got off today was on RBLX. It's already right there. Shopify, as well as what else was I trading? Let me see real quick. Oh yeah, as well as Google as well. That was my first trade. Let's put Google up here. But let's see. But yeah, SQ also had a great sell-off as well. Pretty much almost all the. Let's just go through all the beta names. Nvidia, look at that great sell-off on Nvidia. Make this bigger actually. So let's start off with I'll go through the beta names. But the highest volume was Nvidia. Look, I mean, they're going to follow SPY pretty much, but Nvidia had a great sell-off. AMD, Alibaba a little choppy. Tesla, actually Tesla had the recent stock split, 3-to-1 split yesterday went into effect. So now it's only trading at 290, the cheapest it's been in a while. But yeah, almost all the beta names had pretty decent moves. And if you see these gray lines or these blue lines that I have, these thick lines, these are actually macro pivot levels on the daily chart. And these are levels that I tend to trade around. Actually, I was going to trade some of this AFRM, some of this Affirm, or either with common structure with some puts, but I actually missed the move. I was hoping for another pullback. Anyways, long story. But yeah, another good sell-off on Affirm. But Google, this is one that I actually did trade. This right here is a macro. I'm not going to get into what the macro pivot levels are. I'll do that in future videos. But suffice to say, they're basically large levels of supply and demand, of levels of support or resistance on the daily chart. And you can actually trade around them, depending on the situation. But today, yes, we traded around them. So what happened was Google, the pivot levels right are here around 1290 area, 11290 area. And at around 7:30 a.m. or 10:30 a.m. Eastern, Google actually started to sell and it cracked the pivot level. So basically, what we're looking for is it to crack, but then we're looking for it to make a new low below the pivot and then make a bounce. Is what it did exactly right here. If you see, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have done that. But yes, if you look right here, Google cracked below the pivot level and then it made a significant bounce. So now what we're looking for is to make a newer low again below that, which is called the second entry, which it did around 7:30 exactly. Second entry and makes a newer low. Now what we're looking for is it to bounce again. And we can get in around here with a stop below that pivot, stop, in this case, stop above that pivot level. So that's exactly what I did on Google. I waited for it to crack below the second entry, and then I got in with a decent, let me see where I got in on Google. So yes, if you can see here on Google, it cracked, like I said, around 10:30 a.m. Eastern, and as soon as it bounced back again to about 1260, 1270 area, I got in short. My stop was actually above 1290 here, so I'm risking about 20-30 cents on the trade. And I'm in around 1260, 1270. So as you can see, because these pivot levels, it reacts to them very well. So Google, it never did crack above that second entry level around that 1270 area. I would have let it get all the way back up to around 1290 before stopping, maybe even 13, depending on the situation. But in this case, I didn't need to. I barely took any heat on this position. And it did get all the way down to 112 within about 1, 2, 3, 4, but about 10 minutes. And I had a trailing stop buffer, so I got out of the rest of the position here as I didn't want to give up any of the profit that I had. So that was a nice trade on Google. And to be honest with you, I had a couple other trades as well. Both of them were very similar. To be honest, I started the day, I didn't really even plan on taking any trades today, just due to the fact that yesterday I had a really nice trade to the long side on Meta. And I believe that yesterday was probably the best day of the week when it comes to premium and good price action. I thought yesterday was probably going to be the best premium session of the week. That ended up not being the case at all because with this Fed speech, thanks Jerome Powell. You know what I mean? We appreciate you, dog. With this Fed speech, we had a really good price action on volume. By the way, if you look at see how I look at this S&P 500 from the minute to minute level. This right here, this line is my line that I put in. It's around 300,000 shares traded per minute. What I found is that when the S&P 500, when it gets over this line, there's 300,000 shares per minute traded. That is a significant volume, and that means the market is really like it's a strong market, whether to the short side or the long side. But wherever what it's doing, there's a better chance that there's going to be significant price action and good continuation and good solid sustained moves, good moves that we're looking for with good volume and participation coming into the market. Now, as you can see, throughout most of the summer, throughout most of like the last 3 or 4 months, we haven't seen that at all. It usually cracks in the first minute and it dies down very quickly for the rest of the day. But as you can see today, as soon as the Jackson Hole speech did kick off around 7 a.m., the volume exploded again and actually stayed pretty consistent throughout the rest of the day, basically, which would enable the sell-off and enable the price action on a lot of the beta names and the names. So that's basically what had happened here today. And then from there, also on Google, I got the trade off on there. On Shopify is another name that I did get a trade off on. I'll show you that right here. It's a similar situation on Shopify. This was a macro level here around 32.40. And when it cracked that level, I don't have the second entry level. I took it off already. But the second entry level was right around the 20 area. So basically, it cracked a couple times, retraced a couple times. So basically, you can clearly see that this is definitely the second entry level. I believe let's see what I did on Shopify. Where's it at? Yeah, so on Shopify here, I was here. As you can see, that's the same level, 32.40. And then I had the second entry here around 32.20. It did crack that level once. I saw that as a crack, so I got in right here around 32.30. My stop was around 32.40. So it tested my stop, but it never did break it, so I still stayed in the position. As you can see, Shopify does tend to get a little choppy sometimes. But this is not that high of volume for Shopify. It can get to 300, 400,000 per minute at times, say if it was in the first couple minutes of the day. But we're still running a solid 100,000 per minute, which is solid. Especially due to the SPY price action, drastic sell-off due to the Fed speech was helping it as well. So we got in here on the first retrace after, I call it the first retrace after second entry. We got in here. Could have got a little better entry if we got in here, but we'll take it. 5-cent difference, not a huge difference. And as you can see, it never did crack that initial, we call it an initial macro level, that macro pivot level. And using the second entry as a guide, we got in with the risk above the macro pivot level again, the short side position. And as you can see, it did chop around a little, but it did proceed to sell off all the way down. Our first target was around 32 area. I was hoping it would get down to even 31 because it had a clean chart all the way down there, almost no support resistance on any chart, on the hourly chart, 5-minute chart, any chart or daily chart. But it didn't, it made a little down, a wick, candle wick here and proceeded to bounce. But, I was able to get out the 75% of my position here for a decent little gain. And I had to stop around break even or, around here back above the second entry level. So I was able to get a nice little trade on Shopify. As you can see, that's due to the action here of the pivot level here. And the last trade I got was on RBLX. It's going to be a very similar situation as well, similar setup as well. This one actually made a little bit better of a move than Shopify did. I was thinking about trading some of these with puts instead of common shares, but the simple fact was that on Shopify the puts were a little spready. And on RBLX, there wasn't very much action on the puts. Like there was much more volume, obviously, on the common shares and the puts. I just felt more comfortable trading the common shares than the puts in this situation. Although you could, especially on RBLX, you could have traded the puts, and they did work out well. But the move wasn't great. It wasn't a huge move. Obviously, this is the. Let me see what I had it on here. For RBLX, how did I trade that? So we did. So the market got smacked like Big Willy style today. I'm talking about like Will Smith smacked Chris Rock. That's how the market got smacked today. Thank you, Jerome Powell. We appreciate you for that. Big Willy style. We're doing it big. But anyways, so RBLX, similar situation. I had so around 40. I to be honest, I like this when the second entry level is so close to the original pivot level. That in those situations you don't have to risk much. You can get in oftentimes risking very little for a big reward. As you can see, it's this first entry wasn't the best, but especially the second entry, it's exactly what I did. So it did make a there was this macro pivot level was on the daily chart. So this is already well established before this 4008 or 4010 level. So once it cracked that, it did bounce a little bit. Once it cracked below 40, I knew for a fact like that was definitely a crack. Like you can see, there's huge volume coming in here, biggest volume of the day by far coming in when it cracked that 40 level. That 40 level was well established for a few days, if not a couple weeks beforehand. If you look at the shop, if you look, fine, we'll even look at it now. Look at RBLX right here on the daily chart. I'll show you a little bit about what these daily levels are, just real quick. So on RBLX, if you look at the daily chart, right? This is daily chart RBLX. Don't worry about all these lines and stuff. They're just different moving averages and little pivot levels that I have. But the main thing you need to see is that you see this line. This was the daily pivot level on RBLX, the one that we were trading around right there. If it was, and it wasn't 40, mind you. It was 48. It was closer to 4018. I had it at 4008, but yeah, it was. I think there might have been some pre-market action that did, but it was around 4010, 4015, around this area. Now the reason why I had that area is because it had been rejected twice. It bounced here back from July the 28th. It bounced there, and then again yesterday it tested that level again and bounced there again significantly. Bounce. As soon as it tested, it bounced right away all the way $1. So that means every time it touches that zone, there's buyers there. So basically, that means that's a daily on the daily chart. That's a daily pivot level. So when that level, or when that level does crack, as you can see, it basically triggers some oftentimes some good action, some predictable action. So that's again what it did here. And don't get me wrong, this is all these beta names are triggered and follow the S&P 500 or the Qs. The major market indexes, they do follow that, and that's why this sell-off was also triggered and helped by the Fed speech. But also these beta names are the names that move the most on a daily and weekly basis in the whole market. That's why they're high beta names like Tesla, Apple, Facebook, or Meta, and those type of names. In this case, RBLX is one of them. Snow is basically all the names I have listed here. To be honest with you, if you want to just be some, these are not all, but this is like 95% of the beta names, and I also have more down here. You can see these are the beta names right here. They move even without catalysts. They'll move on a daily and weekly basis, and when they cross these pivot levels, we have predictable results and oftentimes extremely significant results, especially on some of the high volume names like Tesla, Nvidia, and things like that. RBLX not as much. It's a more cheaper now, only a $40 name, but still, as you can see, what happened here. And as you can see, here's the trade here. Basically, long story short, it did crack the pivot level significantly here, below 40. So 40 was the level I have for second entry. So then at that, once it bounces again, it will retrace. Your goal is to get in as close as possible. But basically, your goal is to get in short. And you're risking off this level. I had it at like 14, but around 14. Oh, sorry, 40, 10, 40, 15, something around that area, 40, 10 area. That's what I was doing. So I believe I got in here around 39.95 or something like that. Right here, exactly. So no, actually not as good of an entry. Actually, my first entry was in. I got a little bit hasty on that. I didn't, because some of the names were selling off real quick. With that, I actually missed a couple other names. I missed AFRM as well as UPST. I was watching those and missed them because I was waiting for this movement, this bounce up here, which never came on both of those. So I was literally had the put options pulled up on my screen for UPST as well as for AFRM, Affirm. I mentioned that before, but they didn't make it. I won't get into that now. It's more of a detailed point of strategy. But most of the names will make some type of pullback or retrace. Those did not. When it's a very significant pivot level, or when the action's very extreme, like it was today, sometimes they will not really retrace at all, and you pretty much have to slam entry on the second entry. You have to slam this right here, this second entry cross, if you want to get in at all, or you'll be chasing, or it'll never come back and never chase. But in most cases that I've noticed, it will do at least some type of a retrace, one or more retraces, even if it does work. I believe that's due to the fact there's different traders getting in and out. There's different stops being run, and the market makers they're trying to do a little bit of fake outs with this, faking some people out that get in early, or also basically just trying to put some heat on some traders and maybe getting them to stop out. That basically directly goes into their pocket. So that's what I'm doing now. We're taking advantage of the fake outs, basically. So yes, when it did crack, I got in, but what I did, I got in half size, leaving room to add. I got in around 80, but my stop was up here at 40.08. So when it did pop again, I missed this entry here because I was focused on another trade. But when it happened again, I said, whatever, screw it. I slammed again with full size here, and my average was about 39.90 or 39.87, something like that. And my stop was about 40. 40-10 area. So I was risking about 20 cents on the trade, 20 cents per share, maybe a little 25 cents per share max. As you can see, again, it's similar pattern. It never did crack that level again. It came right down, and I was able to get out. My first exit was around 39.40s, 39.50s. That's the majority, 75% of my position, for 50 cent plus gain per share, and I got out the rest close to break even up here. So that's pretty much it for my 3 trades. I was actually very we got on big Willy style, did it real big. Said going to Miami, bienvenido a Miami type of shit. But yeah, I was surprised about the market action today. I didn't expect, because I thought today would be slow. Basically, as you can see, it probably would have been slow. If you look right up to the Fed speech, it looked like the volume was already dying off. You know what I mean? Was already dying off here. And if it wasn't for this catalyst of Fed speech, it probably would have just been slow with no really tradable action, at least in my no tradable action for me. However, since we did get that sell-off, we got a bunch of sell-offs on the rest of the beta names, which offer some tradable action. When it comes to the earnings names, we'll go over that quickly. When it comes to the earnings names, I didn't really see much in the earnings names. This Fartech didn't really do much, just traded in a dollar range. I mentioned AFRM again. I didn't really worry about the earnings trade, the 5-minute Orbi earnings trade, but like I said, I missed this action. As you can see, once it cracked this second entry, it kind of retraced. I was hoping for it to retrace more, even up to the 60 area, 70 area. It didn't. It just sold right. Anyways, long story on that. MRVL also had earnings today. A little very choppy. Not really much to speak. Gap is a joke. Gap is a joke, bro. I don't know who shops at Gap anymore. It's a joke. Oh yeah, EA. That's big news on EA Electronic Arts. As you can see, pre-market, a big spike in price action. The news is, everybody, that EA, the Amazon company, is possibly potentially looking to purchase and buy out and acquire Electronic Arts. So that is huge news. I don't know how much they're going to have to pay for that. Probably even more than they pay for Whole Foods. Like it's going to be like 20 billion or more, 30 billion if they're going to have to buy Electronic Arts. But that's what it's not official yet, but EA, you can look up the news. Amazon has said that they are interested in possibly acquiring it, and they're putting out a bid to acquire Electronic Arts. So it didn't really affect the price action after the open, but it was a spike pre-market. Dell also had earnings and sold off. I don't know how good Dell. I don't actually follow these. I don't trade these. I trade price action. I don't follow these companies and how good. I don't really care how good Dell's doing, but I believe it sold off mostly due to the market. Workday, same thing. It's a beta name, sold off with the market. But anyways, so yeah, most of the earnings names sold off probably due to the sympathy with the market. Nothing really there to speak of too much. I believe if you were going to trade anything short with the market, you might as well have traded the beta names. Like things like I mentioned, things like either Google. Look at Nvidia. It sold off how much? $10 sell-off on Nvidia. Look at Tesla. Again, you might as well have traded these beta names. Earlier this week, I seen some action on the earnings names, but not really today. Look at Amazon. Amazon's about getting ready to crack right now. I don't think it will though, because it's too late in the day time frame. So no, probably might set up for next week. But yeah, that's pretty much it for today. That's it. Signing off now.